Hi everyone. Welcome to my show. It's sorry, my phone just chimed, and I should probably put it on silent so that was that you, Vish? Did you just send me some? Oh, you did. You totally did. Thank you for that. That was you. So cool. Hi everyone. Welcome to my show. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here on the Pacific Coast. And a time that's a different time in other places of the world where you are from. But we stream on Fridays at 2. My name is Skip Davis. I'm a biblical scholar and a specialist in early Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I am joined, as always, by my lovely and talented co-host, Vishanti. Yeah, I did it right that time. There she is. Hi.
Oh wait, I have to do it this way.
Oh, why do you have to do it that way? What's that?
Because Rocky doesn't have like wrists.
Oh, yes. So you want to tell everybody what you were just
I'm still trying to get myself together because I literally less than 10 minutes ago finished watching Project Hail Mary with Dapper Dinosaur, and I was just crying the literal actual tears because I needed a story that was wholesome. I might get emotional again. So yeah, amaze.
Very, very good. I really enjoyed Project Hail Mary. Last night, I'm vacation mode, Kip. So I'm not at home. I'm in parts unknown. And I and my host last night watched It Follows. Do you know?
Oh, that's such a good movie.
Look, I have to tell you.
I'll mark that off on the kick-ass movie list.
All right. I have to tell you, I really did not like the ending.
Oh, damn. Was it because it was too open-ended or not like satisfyingly resolved?
I know. I mean, my first instinct was this is dumb. So, but it didn't feel. I don't know. There was something ultimately very unsatisfying about the ending.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't mind open ended. It just, to me, I don't know if it made a lot of sense. But no, and in retrospect, I have feelings about this movie. I think when I woke up this morning and I was like, I think It Follows might actually be a love story. And that was something that I was not really.
I guess, but I don't know. The way that I kind of took the ending was, okay, you have some companionship, which is cool. You went through some trauma with a person, like, all right.
Yep.
But also like that figure in the background behind them that was walking, you're never totally sure if it's, so
I like that
kind of goes along with the themes of the movie. And so yeah, I mean, I get it didn't have exactly the ending that I was expecting, but I'm like, it kind of works for the movie. So
okay. Yeah. So that's what it was. I very much we watched a couple nights ago, we watched Nope, which I liked much better. I really liked Nope. Nope was very good. So but there's people here. We should say hi to the people.
Well, I mean, the fact that it's already 2.5 hours is a lot, but they did compress that down where he's not a linguist and he tries to get an equivalence going, so that's a quick-ish way to learn. So I thought it was nice that they at least show the challenges of like what it would take to interact with an alien. So yeah, lots of feels in that one, lots of sad but also happy. It felt very much emotionally like the movie Up in that way, where it's like happy, then sad and you're crying, and then it's happy and then you're sad and you're crying, and I'm just like, so
I haven't watched Up in too long.
I can't. It's that first 10 minutes alone. Just
oh my god! It's the first 10 minutes on its own is some of the best animated filmmaking I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Just it's just a masterpiece. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to do while I was away, while I'm here, was to go and watch the Odyssey, and my son insists that I have to go watch it in 70 millimeter. There are only 41 projectors in the entire planet. So I happen to be in a place that's not that far from one of them. And so I was like, before I left to come out here, I had dinner with my oldest kid, and we were talking about it. And I just said to him, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna go do this. He's like, 70 millimeter IMAX. Yeah, yes, 70 millimeter IMAX. And he's like, well, do you have tickets already? I'm like, no, I figured I'd just get them.
No.
So yes, this is no, it's not happening. I've been looking for several days now, just in the hope that maybe somebody has canceled or dropped their tickets, because, like, no kidding, every goddamn showing of this movie at every time of every day is sold out, except for that shitty row, that front row at the IMAX theater, where you're so close to the screen,
you're just completely craned back.
Yeah. So I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm really thinking it just might not happen. So yeah. But anyways, I'm having a wonderful vacation.
I mean, plot wise, yeah, the ending maybe. But you know what? Damn it, with things as bad as they are, I needed something wholesome. So I like that it was cute and that he had his little dome. And
yeah, me too.
Amaze.
Yeah.
I just needed something that was cute. So
I don't know. Did we say anything about the ending of Project Hail Mary? Because we were talking a lot about the ending of It Follows, but I liked everything about.
Maybe that was talking about It Follows.
I think so. Well, it didn't seem like it though. I don't know.
Oh wait, no.
But
wait, no. It was.
Yeah. It was definitely so. Anyways,
one of those things that you realize, like, it's kind of a quick line, but you realize that Grace got to meet Rocky's mate because she's or it is apparently working on some environmental stuff. So I'm like, okay.
That's awesome.
So
all right.
Anyway,
let's say hi to some people. Oh, sorry. Did you have something else that you wanted to?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, very good. Awesome to hear, Chrissy. And it's good to see you. Very excited for you. Thanks for letting us know. So, but let's do a roll call. I Was Never Here is here, and Maya is here. Alira, I hope you're still awake, Alira. I know it's very, very late for you. Weirdo Rock Hyrix Evan is here. Who else? We have a bunch of people commenting early on here. Allegedly Fred is here. G Ward, budding Hebraist, who was in my reading Hebrew through the Book of Jonah class, which just ended on Wednesday, is here.
That's Gward in the live chat.
Gward.
I asked the first time whether it was G Ward or Gward, and then I was like, Gward is funnier, so it's Gward.
It's Gward. Good to see you, Gward. Dr. Clark Van Gilder is here. And is going out on a limb to predict that Wes Huff still doesn't know what he's talking about. Very true. But, we are actually going to be starting with something before we get into the Wes Huff stuff today, which I'm keen to get to pretty quick. So, Ann Stevenson is here. It's good to see you. John Gooderham is here. Good to see you. David Sinclair is here. Kinetic 44 is here. Rumbidzai, new channel member Rumbidzai is here. Welcome. Brandon Runyon is here. Chrissy is here, of course. DH Personal is here. And oh, look. Dave is here. Hello, Kip Davis. Your ideas intrigue me, and I'm looking forward to your presentation. Well, thank you, Dave. Dave Ziebert from Toast to Toast. Are you guys streaming tonight? I didn't bother to check.
No, I asked.
Okay. Triceratops, it's good to see you. Metal Geeky Platypus Librarian is here. Is that a shadow behind me? I think they're talking about It Follows. Yeah, I mean, I am gonna be. I'll be honest. I'll be looking over my shoulder for a while after seeing it. So, Holly is here. I missed Tree Climb Tad, who would never let me hear the end of it if I didn't say something. So good to see you. I guess I don't know. It's good. It's a good reminder that I'm streaming. When Tree Climb Tad is here. Lelson of Spring. I'm not sure if I remember seeing you around, but welcome. And
I
if
recognize them.
All right, nice. It's hard to recognize everybody. So yeah, whole bunch of people here. Rabbit Atheist is here. Petite Flowers is here. Bitcores is here. Ian Kiambi is here. I haven't seen you around in a little bit. Ian, good to see you. Oh, and my goodness, Metal Theologian. I thought It Follows was pretty good, but I don't remember how it ends. You should go watch it again. That's what you should do. In that, is this a reaction to a Wes Huff video? In a manner of speaking,
it will be.
So last week, Vish and I started reviewing a course. Wes Huff is now an instructor at the illustrious Peterson Academy, one of the great institutions of all time. It certainly is one of the institutions. And it look, Prixie is here, Fits of Rage is here, Emberlyn Mother of Dragons is here. Good to see you guys. So the course that he's teaching is called The Reliability of the Bible, which is just silly on the face of it, as like teaching it. I mean, there's just so many ways that you can go with that. It's kind of nonsensical. But before we get into that, I do need to draw some attention to a thing. So if you could get the video ready, Vish, we'll jump to it in just a minute. So I just learned about this yesterday, even though it happened a couple of weeks ago. But look, vacation mode, Kip. Right, I'm on vacation. I missed a lot of shit. So, Richard Carrier posted an entry on his blog on the 5th of August, 2026, to announce that he's just published a major new article in a peer-reviewed journal, the Canadian American Theological Review. You know, that very prominent, important, major journal, Vish, the Canadian American Theological Review, that I'm sure you've heard of before. The title of his article is "Did Any Pre-Christian Jews Expect a Dying and Rising Messiah?" He says it will be the lead article in volume 14, their delayed 2025 issue. The lead article sounds like it's super important. Sounds like they published the whole journal just to get that article in there, or that they thought it was so good that they figured it's got to be the first one in the journal, right? I think, I think that's, but I mean, that's just not how these things work. Evangelicals and Mythicists agreeing on yet another thing. Predator handshake me. Yes.
Big beefy. Yeah.
It totally is. There's so much of this. Oh my God. So I'm going to actually zoom in on this a little bit if I can. I don't know how to on this computer, so maybe I won't. No, I'm not going to bother trying. So, okay. So it would be the lead article in volume 14, their delayed 2025 issue. Print copies are going out to that journal subscribers in a few weeks, and digital versions will be available in maybe a few months. In 20 pages, it finds the answer is pretty much yes, and that the vast majority of the dozens of experts who've explored the question agree. The folks who erroneously believed a certain YouTube guy with a goatee and a toque will be outraged and overwhelmed by the support I found for element 5 of my original study on the historicity of Jesus. A dying Messiah was a live option within certain fringe groups of Jews, out of which Christianity most likely arose, not with any radical new idea, but with the slickest implementation of an already old one. That these messianic expectations definitely, or plausibly, those are two different things, I feel like, that are separated by a fair chasm of things in between. Existed for at least a century prior to Christianity, alongside more usual ideas of an invisible conqueror, is unquestionably the mainstream consensus now. When measured by the proportion of actual specialists investigating the matter and publishing their results, or actually reading them, and those who didn't. I'll be discussing it with Godless Engineer on his show this Friday. That was the 7th of August. And, you know, I was still pulling my hair out from trying to move. So that's why I missed it. And we'll be taking questions from the audience. So join us and hear all about it. So first and foremost, yes, there will be a stream at some point to go into greater depth about this. But there was one thing that I did want to hit on today, just because it's fun, and also because it's a good reminder to all of us just what a terrible reader Dr. Richard Carrier is, to the point that sometimes it's astonishing that he actually managed to finish and earn a PhD by the amount that he quote mines or Trojan sources his way through the material to try and support his often very feeble points. So just so you know, the journal itself is this one. It is the Canadian American Theological Journal. The Canadian American Theological Review is the journal of the Canadian American Theological Association. And the Canadian American Theological Review is the primary academic publication of the CATA, intended to facilitate conversational matters of theology, scripture, and culture, published twice annually. The journal includes contributions from leading theological and biblical scholars from around the world. CATR is blind peer-reviewed, digitally indexed, and licensed by the American Theological Library Association. So the Canadian American Theological Association, which is something else I've never heard of before, is it says that it is a Christian ecumenical academic society that finds its primary membership and interest in North America. Our members and executive board come from a variety of cultural backgrounds, Christian traditions, and geographical locations. All, however, identify with the Christian faith as outlined in such classic statements as the Apostles' Creed and Nicene Creed, and seek to contribute to deepening theological reflection and biblical interpretation among Christian scholars, pastors, and theological students for the sake of the church. Look, no, I mean, theological journals are, and theological associations are what they are. They're not really my thing. I'm not that interested. My PhD has theology written on the actual degree itself, despite the fact that I've done almost none in my entire career. So that being said, they can do their thing. It does seem like an odd choice for Richard Carrier. Am I still here? I feel like I'm breaking up a bit.
No, you're
Everything
still
good?
Here.
Okay,
I can hear
good.
you.
All right, excellent. So it feels like a bit of an odd choice to publish this particular article of Carrier's. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any preliminary thoughts about that, Vish?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Should we just jump to the video?
Yeah.
So I've got 3 timestamps here, and so in the first one,
the first thing I'm gonna say is, oh my god, did you have to use papyrus?
right? This is the very first thing I thought too when I saw this. I am so happy that you and I are tracking with this. So nothing says serious academic work like papyrus font, and the parchment theme in Keynote, of course. So now listen, I've used it before. Full disclosure, the last time I used it though, I think was over 10 years ago. So anyways, so at first, the first little clip here, he's going to make his thesis statement and have some comments about that. Then we're going to jump ahead to another timestamp where he talks a little bit about a manuscript that you and I did an entire stream on, Vish, the Melchizedek Scroll, 11Q13. And then, as a special treat that Richard made just for me, we're going to talk about his concurring scholars with a very carefully selected example. All right, so let's start with the thesis statement of his article.
Okay.
This is the paper's thesis, and this is a direct quote. This is from the paper. Actually, I think this is the abstract. An oft-repeated dogma that ancient Jews could never have imagined a suffering or dying Messiah before Christianity should be abandoned. This can be demonstrated by surveying the views of several dozen specialists who have questioned or criticized this dogma from the mid-20th century to the present. They all call attention to a considerable amount of evidence that triangulates to the idea of a suffering and dying Messiah, probably predating Christianity in some circles of Jewish thought. At best, this evidence establishes this conclusion as a fact, but even at worst, it establishes its plausibility as a hypothesis, removing all justification for maintaining any dogma against it. Christianity can then more clearly be seen as a natural emergence from prior Jewish expectations and understanding of Scripture, rather than a radical break from it.
Kip, I'm not a Second Temple Jew. I'm just a modern Jew. But we'll say anybody could be the Messiah in rabbinic Jewish thought. Like, there's potential candidates in every generation, as the kind of understanding goes. But regardless of that, that's, been an expectation. It's just a person. They don't have to be divine or semi-divine at all. And they can die. They're mortal, as far as anyone can tell. So to me, again, not a Second Temple Jew, reading that statement and going, okay, suffering and dying, so any human being could do that.
Yeah.
The crux of Christianity isn't that somebody died. It's that they came back to life.
Mm-hmm.
That was the breaking, philosophy. So I'm a little skeptical of this. It feels like a straw man argument, but I'll let it cook.
It is a straw man argument in that, something he says here is that there is an oft repeated dogma that ancient Jews could never have imagined a suffering dying Messiah. No scholars are coming out and going, this was impossible. That's not the argument. What the argument is that there's no evidence. There's no clear evidence which shows some of these features underlining earlier Jewish thought prior to the writings of Christianity. That's the argument. That's the statement. And it's not so much that the Messiah. Yes, the Messiah was going to be a human being. There were sects of Jews which had much grander cosmic expectations of what was going to happen in the last days. The identity of the Messiah was not necessarily a cosmic figure, but they certainly believed in the intervention of cosmic figures in the last days, that this was something that, and those things often get conflated. The Messiah as a cosmic figure is something that often gets conflated with cosmic figures and the Messiah and a cast of characters that certain sects of Jews had held to in their expectations of the last days. So it becomes more complicated. Carrier is conflating a bunch of these ideas into this single thing, right? So it just, yeah, that's a big one for me, is just this idea that I've heard people say that they did not imagine that. I've never heard anyone say that they could not have. Yes. Yeah, exactly. As far as we are aware.
Yeah, that's another thing, is
we have.
Speculating on people's imaginative capability is a little sus.
It really is. It really is. And that's the other thing too, is it wasn't so much problematic. Like it wasn't, yes, the resurrection really distinguished Christianity, but it wasn't so much problematic that he died as that he died in such a public spectacle as an object of shame. Was more of the problem, really, for the early Christians. So it's and I believe that's a big component of what Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 when he talks about the cross, Christ crucified, being a stumbling block to the Jews. So so there's that. Do you want to play a little bit more and then we'll jump ahead?
Okay.
He's got some things
And I
about this.
put in bold the phrases and words that the critics will ignore and try to trick you into forgetting that these words are there. So
Sure.
pay attention to the things that are in bold, because those are the...
Yeah, again, my issue right off the bat is could never have imagined. That is really shitty.
It really is.
Stuff to do. Like, what historian would go, oh, they can't imagine this stuff? Like,
No.
that's a fairly mundane thing, is somebody suffering and dying. Applying it to a Messiah, okay, that's not a huge leap, but also, like, how do you know what ancient people were capable of imagining? That's weird. Humans can imagine all kinds of things. Look at all the stories we write. So, I don't know, man. That's dodgy from the start.
See, I think it's always framed this way because, as the commenter earlier that you highlighted pointed out, so clearly showed, Carrier's ideas about mythicism map very closely onto conservative evangelical Christian appraisals of early Judaism. And there's a reason for that. It's because Carrier doesn't understand the difference between what a lot of conservative evangelical scholars are doing and what the rest of scholars are doing when it comes to the early Jewish literature. Because one of the things that the mythicists and the evangelicals are at great pains to point out is that Jesus was a precise fulfillment of Old Testament expectations of the Messiah. So they're all kind of dealing with the same text, and they're all dealing with them in the same way. And the rest of scholarship is going, nah, no, sorry. No. So that's why, if you ever happen to read a book by Richard Carrier or an article by Richard Carrier, one of the things you will see oft-cited beyond his own blog are conservative evangelical Christian scholars. He depends a great deal on them, a great amount of the time. So yeah, play a little bit more. I'll tell you one more. We'll jump ahead to the next timestamp.
Okay, so 26, right?
Yeah, let's go there. 26. Yeah, 20, and pretty much 26 on the nose there. It's hard with these super long ones.
That's why I use the little arrows. And
matters is, what were Jewish sectarians reading these texts as saying?
It's
in the sense,
if you jump ahead about a minute.
Oh, Mobby.
So
Tiny
here,
numbers.
Carrier is going to talk about this really interesting document called the Melchizedek Scroll, 11Q13. Vish and I did a whole stream on this. I encourage you at some point, if you're interested, to go back and check that out. And when it comes to talking in earnest about this article that Carrier's wrote, we'll talk a lot more about 11Q13.
Okay.
All right. The other thing is the Melchizedek scroll. This is the one that gets debated a lot, but every scholar, considering the import of this scroll, which is called 11Q13 is its designation, every scholar considering the import of 11Q13 on this question also agrees it implicates the dying Messiah of Daniel 9. There's one exception of Abeg, but even he agrees that maybe it could. His argument is that we don't know that.
For a
He's
second.
wrong.
Wait, Marty Abeg?
Yes.
Okay.
Marty Abeg.
Okay.
He seems to think it's very interesting the way a Carrier has no fucking idea who any of these people are, right? So he doesn't understand who Marty Abeg is, or who John Collins is, or who George Brooke is, because these are all just essays and articles in books. He's had no actual interaction with their arguments, or has no understanding of how highly regarded or otherwise they are within the field. For those who are unaware, Marty Abeg is a very good friend of mine. Actually, I moved recently, so he used to live just down the hill from me. Marty Abeg was my first Greek teacher. Marty Abeg was the supervisor of my master's thesis, and Marty Abeg has been one of the strong supporters of my career for, I don't know, 30 years effectively. Marty Abeg. He also happens to be one of the absolute best grammarians of Hebrew, specifically Qumran Hebrew. He is one of the very best scholars of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I might be a little biased, but I don't think I'm untoward in pointing out that Marty Abeg is highly respected within the field. So, and I mean, I get it. Pronunciation is difficult, but it just goes to show you how unfamiliar Carrier is with the field that he continues to call him Abeg. No, it's Marty Abeg. Marty Abeg.
Yeah, that's one of those things, Anna. You just tell on yourself pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like
So
if you were in the circles where he's being read, you would know how to
just
so.
Yeah. So
the last
a couple of the last projects that Marty Abeg has been working on since his retirement. He's been retired for about 10 years now. But some of the last projects that he's been working on since his retirement are the official a brand new critical edition of the War Scroll and the related text to the War Scroll. As well, he was for a while, the editor-in-chief of the new Dead Sea Scrolls editions, which were scheduled for publication with Brill. But that was prior. They've since, as far as I'm aware, I think the series has. I don't know if the series has been canceled, but it certainly has been scaled back. He's the editor. He's the chief editor of that. But so yeah, let's. But I want everyone to pay attention to what's on the screen here. Every scholar considering the import of 11Q13 on this question also agrees it implicates the dying Messiah of Daniel 9. There's two figures that are identified as Mashiach in Daniel 9 in verse 26 and verse 27. Or is it 25? It's verse 25 to verse 26. It says one anointed one is a prince who rules, and then is followed by another anointed one who is cut off or who dies. These are general titles. In the mind of the writer of Daniel, these are the word Mashiach used by the author of the book of Daniel. This is not with reference to the Messiah. Okay. Importantly, this is a general reference to an anointed figure. In this case, an anointed priest. The first priest, Joshua, the high priest of the first high priest of the Second Temple, and then the second anointed one who is cut off is Onias III, who was killed. This event basically was one of the things that sparked the Hasmonean revolt. So importantly, he's claiming here that every scholar agrees it implicates the dying Messiah of Daniel 9 in 11Q13. The reason we don't know for sure is because it's fragmentary. The text mentions the Messiah and part of the quote, but then it doesn't complete the quote. So you can in theory reconstruct it either to conform to verse 25 or verse 26. Until you actually sit down and work with the material. When you sit down and you work with the material, you come to realize, oh, it has to be the Messiah from Daniel 9:25, the victorious ruling or anointed one, not the Messiah who was cut off. There are some scholars who continue to hold to this idea that it is the latter, but as far as I'm aware, this is still not. This is not even remotely accurate. This statement that he's making here with respect to this text. So press play.
Whoop, sorry.
His argument. If we get into the Abig thing, I'll explain why I don't really think he's a relevant author to this. But just to be thorough,
it's not relevant. That Abig guy, what the hell does he know?
I'm just thinking of that scene from Mad Max Fury Road. Mediocre.
Yeah. Oh, Richard, if you only knew. If you only knew.
Okay.
Oh, so no one accuses me of forgetting the guy. Okay, so the point being is that we have dozens of scholars, or at least a dozen scholars, somewhere in that ballpark, considering this passage and agree with me on this. They interpret basically use the exact same arguments I did, come to the exact same conclusion I did about this.
The exact same conclusion.
Okay, so the purpose of my study, therefore, given all of that,
pause it there for a second. So, and then we'll jump ahead to this last timestamp at 41:38. So, he's made a claim there, and this is when I first saw this, which was last night. I was like, it doesn't seem right. I mean, I've read a lot of the literature. This just doesn't seem right. Like, this continues to be a hotly contested issue of the identity of the Messiah from Daniel chapter 9 in 11Q13. Continues to be a hotly contested issue in certain circles. I don't recall there being this much unanimous consensus. Certainly not for this figure as the Messiah who was cut off. As in the stuff that I'm reading, most scholars are still saying, yeah, no, it's the Messiah of Daniel 25. It's the Joshua, the high priest of the Second Temple. So right away that sounded very strange to me. I'm like, how, Richard, are you reading the literature and coming to this conclusion? So he provides an example for us. And I think if we look quickly at the example, we do come to understand how Richard arrives at some of his conclusions. Oh, where'd you go, Vish? Oh, there. Are you still? So
Cat needs open door.
Oh, sorry. That just, the timing of that was poor.
Me just noping out of this carrier thing. Like, I'm out.
Yeah, can't take it. So, yes. So, here is this carrier did this.
Baby, you can't sit on the fan. Sorry, the room is cold. She wants to sit on the computer fan because it's warm.
Yeah, don't do that. What you need in your room, Vish, is what I found. You need a car hood.
Yes,
I do. That's what you need in your room. So yes, so this is the special treat that Carrier has included in this video just for me. He did this just for me. So this is fun.
That we're not ignoring these facts. That is a thing to look at. Okay, scholars concurring. I'm not going to read all the names, but arguing the point is I've got a big list there. Concurring an opinion, I've got a list there.
Because I think
these are the authors I talk about.
At some of these names, all right. And remember what I said about the cross section between mythicists and evangelical Christian scholars. Mitchell is an evangelical Christian. Boyarin is Jewish, but wrote a book that a lot of evangelical Christians like, making the case that that Christianity is a natural outworking of Judaism, because of course it is. Timothy Lim, Christian scholar. Martin Hengel, a Christian scholar. Bailey, George Brooke, Gabriel Boccaccini, Goldingay, a very conservative evangelical Christian scholar. Angel Portier Young, Eugene Ulrich, Suk-Young Kim is a Christian scholar. John Seitz Bergsma is like a trad cath, like a traditional Catholic theologian. Some of these other names here, Mike.
There's a difference between like a traditional Catholic theologian and a trad cath. Like those are the sedevacantists that reject Vatican II and all that stuff. Like those are different, and they're conservative bros and.
Yeah, and I don't know where he stands on Vatican II, but I wouldn't be surprised. Right. Okay. So some of these other names. Mike Wise, conservative evangelical Christian scholars. Emile Puwesh is a Catholic Dominican who worked on the scrolls. And then you have Starkey and Brownlee were some of the original editors. He very helpfully includes his own name and Raphael Lataster's there, because that's great. Jason Staples, conservative Catholic scholar. And then he's got the concurring with his opinion are people like Michael Heiser on the list there. Craig Evans, Blomberg. Not that everybody doesn't have a seat at the table, but with this many conservative evangelical or sympathetic to those ideas on this list, it should give you some pause. But continue.
He listed Michael Heiser. I can't take that seriously.
Michael Heiser
can't
is on his list.
And summarize and discuss in my article. There's all the people who agree with me. And I'm going to pick an example, that's going to hurt certain people. George Brooke. So folks who know the backstory know why this is a painful one for certain parties to realize. George Brooke wrote 20 years ago all of this. So he's an example of someone who's kind of like a typical case. He agrees with thinking that 11Q13 implicates the dying Messiah of Daniel 9. So he's with me on that. And therefore, he argues Q13 should be viewed as providing much of the exegetical background, allowing for the early Christian development of the motif of a dying Messiah. That's almost verbatim element 5 in my book. So that is basically exactly my thesis. Yeah. George Brooke affirms my thesis.
Pause it here. So let's talk about who George Brooke is. But before we do, let's very carefully read what Carrier claims here. Pay attention to what he's actually quoting George Brooke is saying. Okay? He says, George Brooke agrees with thinking 11Q13 implicates the dying Messiah of Daniel 9. So 11Q13, and here's the quote, should be viewed as providing much of the exegetical background, ellipses, allowing for the early Christian development of the motif of a dying Messiah.
Kip,
okay,
are we going to get a Trojan source?
Oh, Vish. Oh, Vish.
Oh.
Yeah. So
great.
Do you know who George Brooke is?
I've heard you talk about him, but
yeah.
So off the top of my head, I wouldn't.
And the reason why Carrier is so delighted about this is because George Brooke is my doctor father. He was my PhD supervisor at the University of Manchester. I've got nothing but love for George Brooke, but my God, George Brooke has been writing about the Dead Sea Scrolls for 40 years. 40 years. And this is important, okay? Because within the history of the Dead Sea Scrolls, within the history of Dead Sea Scrolls scholarship, one of the things that you'll discover is that there is an evolution of thinking over the course of a fairly, what I think is a relatively short timeline. Things that scholars were talking about and ideas that they held to 40 years ago have by and large been abandoned in many circles. Some of the best scholars of the Dead Sea Scrolls held to ideas 40 years ago that we have left at the wayside since. And we're going to get into this statement, this claim about 11Q13 that George made in an essay that he wrote that was published in a volume that I've got here. I'll pull it up in a second, but I just want to read it again. Okay. George Brooke agrees in thinking 11Q13 implicates the dying Messiah of Daniel 9. Want people to pay attention to that. What does George Brooke think about the dying Messiah of Daniel 9? So-called 11Q13, quote, should be viewed as providing much of the exegetical background, ellipses, allowing for the early Christian development of the motif of a dying Messiah. Okay, everybody got that in their head. Don't just leave this slide up so that we can return to it. But I want to now jump to the source itself. So this is George published this book. Here it is. The Dead Sea Scrolls of the New Testament. He published this in 2005. There we go. Published in 2005. And this book is I think he says so here. I am pleased to acknowledge the prompting of both Ruben McCurry, commissioning editor of SPCK, and Casey Hansen, editor for Fortress Press, and encouraged me to put together this collection of essays on the broad theme of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. So in 2005, which was the same year that I began my PhD, in fact, George gave me a copy of this book pretty much on my arrival at the University of Manchester. It had just come out. So he was asked by Fortress and SPCK to put together a collection of some of the things that he has written over the past number of years about the connection between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. All right. So he has a list here in the acknowledgments of the contents, where these things originally came from. I'm grateful to the various publishers who have willingly given permission to me to reproduce material that I've contributed, which I've contributed to their publications. So here is a listing of all the individual chapters and where he first published them. I want you to notice something here. The first article was from 1999, the second from 2003, the third from 1997, the fourth from 2000, chapter 5 from 2000, chapter 6 from 1989, chapter 7 from 1993. So chapter 8, chapter 9, which is the one that we're really going to look at here. This is where the quote that Carrier pulled is from this book, from this article. Chapter 9 first appeared as Luke Acts and the Qumran Scrolls, the case of the case of MMT, in Luke's Literary Achievement Collected Essays, published in 1995. So already in 2005, by the time that George put together this group of collected essays, this one was 10 years old at the start of my PhD. All right. So I just want to jump ahead. This is the article in question. Luke, Acts, and the Qumran Scrolls, the case of MMT. He opens with this preamble about Luke, Acts, and the Scrolls.
Can you make that embiggened?
Don't know.
Yes, there are plus signs at the little top where the navigation bar would be on a browser.
Oh, there we go.
Right there. Ba-bam.
Yay,
there you go.
I did it.
Yay, now I can see it. It's not itty-bitty.
I'm sorry.
What is this, a PDF for ants?
Yes, it is. Can I make it even? Oh, I can. There. All right.
Yeah.
Luke, Acts, and the Scrolls.
All right.
Since the early days of research into the meaning and significance of the Dead Sea Scrolls found at Qumran, parallels with the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles have been pointed out frequently and in detail. It is intriguing to note that apart from the Sermon on the Mount, neither Matthew's supposed Jewishness nor Mark's early date has resulted in those Gospels having more of their fair share of parallels with the forms of Palestinian Judaism represented in the Qumran Scrolls. So he goes on to just talk about some of this connection here, right? On the second page here, he says this: since the unpublished scrolls became generally available in 1991, there has been some renewed interest in parallels between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. In several instances, the study of certain fragmentary texts is in its infancy. Remember, it's 1995. Here it is common for the New Testament evidence to be used for the better understanding of the Qumran material in itself, rather than there being any interest in drawing out the literary parallels for better understanding of the New Testament. So that's what he wants to do in this article, is look at literary parallels between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gospel of Luke. In many cases, it has been the Gospel of Luke which has been the subject of comparison. For example, though known before 1991, the so-called Son of God text, we've talked about this one, Vish, 4Q246, the Apocryphon of Daniel, Aramaic Apocryphon, has been the cause of much debate. The text is fragmentary and it is not easy to understand. The principal argument lies between those who see the Son of God and the Son of the Most High as epithets used. Sorry, I have to sneeze. I have a mute button here. Wait, maybe it's going away. Okay, it went away. Who see the Son of God and the Son of the Most High as epithets used of a wicked figure, and those who see the title referring to some messianic or angelic figure. And we talked about that. It is not difficult to see that those in the latter camp refer to the positive usage of the title in Luke 2:30-37, to assist their interpretation of 4Q246. There's another instance of Luke. Here's where we get to the critical part of Carrier's quotation of Brooke as supporting his ideas about the dying Messiah in 11Q13 and how this helped to shape the early Christian belief in a dying Messiah. Okay, so here is where we get to the meat of it. Another instance of Luke playing a role in the better understanding of the scrolls material concerns what a few interpreters formerly called the pierced Messiah text, 4Q285, fragment 7, 4Q Silfer Malchama. In this case, Robert Eisenman made the unlikely suggestion that Vahimito Nasi Ha'ada should be pointed so that it was translated as, and they will put the prince of the congregation to death. The prince of the congregation is a term that's often used in the Dead Sea Scrolls for this messianic figure, the Messiah of the house of David, who is going to come and destroy the enemies of the Jews, the Romans. Okay? Eisenman thought that this fragment read, and they will put the prince of the congregation to death. Because of the place of Isaiah 11 verse 1 at the start of the disputed fragment, support for insisting that the most likely and therefore preferred pointing should produce the rendering, and the prince of the congregation will kill him, included allusion to the use of Isaiah 11, 1-5 elsewhere. And here's the paragraph here that Brooke is directly quoting from. Since it was claimed that 11Q Melchizedek supported the interpretation of 4Q285 as describing a dying Messiah, Timothy Lim addressed the immediate problem of the most suitable reading, 11Q Melchizedek, and its relation to the Gospel of Luke. Even though, remember what we said, Carrier wants to claim that George Brooke supports his idea that 11Q13 presents the dying Messiah of Daniel chapter 9. Okay? Even though Daniel 9:25 seems to be cited in 11Q Melchizedek column 2, lines 17 to 18, it is far less certain that the allusion also intended to include Daniel 9:26 with its anointed one who is cut off. Is that the same thing as what Carrier claims Brooke says? Are you dying,
Yeah.
Vish? Am I killing you?
A little bit. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Source.
Yeah. It's right there. It is far less certain that the allusion also intended to include Daniel 9:26 with its anointed one who is cut off. So here, what Brooke is actually saying is that he agrees that the text of Daniel 9 that we have to reconstruct in 11Q13 is actually the Messiah, the prince who rules, and not the Messiah who is cut off, and goes further to state that the allusion it does not include the Messiah who is cut off. It is far less certain that the allusion also intended to include Daniel 9:26 with its anointed one who is cut off, since 11Q Melchizedek goes on to say how this figure saved people from Belial. It seems, however, that it is possible that 11Q Melchizedek should be viewed as, and here is part of the quote, providing much of the exegetical background. Should we pull it up? Just make sure we get this right.
Yeah.
You want to put it up again? Okay. 11Q13 should be viewed as providing much of the exegetical background. So there's the first part.
Hang on. Yeah, it is possible.
It is
to be viewed.
Possible that it should be as providing much of the exegetical background for Luke 4:16 to 21, as has been widely suggested. Timothy Lim goes so far as to suggest that 11Q Melchizedek provides the exegetical link between Daniel 9:25 to 26 and Luke 4:16 to 21. And I think this is the rest of the quote here. Allowing for the early Christian development of the motif of a dying Messiah.
Yeah. Franken quote.
It's kind of a Franken quote.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first place, I think it's important to point out George is not the subject of George's study is not 11Q Melchizedek. He invokes 11Q Melchizedek because he's also talking about 4Q285. But even those are not the theme of his article. Yet a third recent text has been better appreciated in light of the third gospel, the so-called resurrection text, 4Q521, which is the correct, like this is what the article is about. It's about this other text, 4Q521. So now, I said I was very confused at how Carrier could come up with that large list of scholars who all agree with him on this point. I'm less confused after reading this, because it seems patently obvious when you actually just go back and look at what Carrier is, misquoting, that he's just misreading the text. This doesn't say anything about what Carrier wants it to say. So his great big mic drop that upset me so much is this. Yeah, I'm upset. I'm upset that you're such a fucking dumbass, Richard Carrier, that you can't quote people properly, that you misattribute positions to scholars that they don't actually hold. And then you go ahead and publish a peer-reviewed article about it in a lower-tier theological journal that nobody is going to read. That's what upsets me. So, yeah, there we go. That's George Brooke. That's my Dr. Fodder. People should read George's stuff because it's excellent. He's a phenomenal scholar. But I'll point this out again. This is an essay that he wrote in 1995. It's like 40 years ago. Wasn't it? Or 30? 30 years.
30.
Yeah, 30 years. 30 years ago. 30 years ago. At one point, and actually, well, you know what? Let's bring this up and let's finish hearing him out now that now we're not even going to get into the second example here from the other article. I have a lot more to say about that, and it's coming when I actually get my hands on this article that Richard has written. We're doing a stream about this, and we're going to talk about this. But let's listen to the rest of this. He has something else to say about
and of one piece of evidence too. So like I don't use only 11 through 13. I stack the evidence. He adds a piece of evidence that I didn't, and goes into detail on that because it's his area of expertise. In the use of Isaiah in 4Q 541, which is a chapter in one of his books, he talks about the Apocryphon on Levi, which is it's actually Brooke is a leading expert on that. Like, so he really studied the hell out of this. He's a leading Dead Sea Scrolls scholar. So he argues that it may be possible to construe 4Q 541 as speaking of the death of an eschatological figure, as Isaiah 53 could itself be construed to do, possibly even a death by crucifixion. Again, that's almost verbatim what I argued in element 15, except without this evidence. So he's actually...
You guys, we went through the quote mine. We went through the Trojan source in his first example. Look at this one. Look at what he's actually quoting in the use of Isaiah in 4Q 541, the Apocryphon of Levi, in which Brooke is a leading expert, says this: it may be possible to construe something it as speaking of the death of an eschatological figure, as Isaiah 53 could itself be construed to do, possibly even a death by crucifixion. Now, look at all, there's not a complete, he has not cited a complete sentence of Brooke anywhere here. Now think about what we just looked at and tell me, chat, how confident are you now that he's reading this article correctly? How confident are you? How confident are you, Vish?
I think you know how confident I am.
I know. Okay, press play.
Okay.
Stacking more evidence on top of the evidence that I had and coming to the same conclusion that I did. And so Brooke concludes, it now seems that there is a Jewish text whose author used the servant passages of Isaiah to support the understanding that there was to be an eschatological priest who would suffer, possibly even that the suffering involved death that would lead to joyous benefits for others. He talks about the atonement principle and everything being in there. And so the first Christians co-opted, not invented.
Because I want to, something that's important to point out. So the whole point of George's article, the other one, the one on 4Q 541, is to show that this particular text, 4Q 541, is using Isaiah texts particularly the servant songs, as background for its description of this eschatological priest in the last days, who, as he points out, would suffer, possibly even suffering involved that the suffering involved death, which is wrong. George didn't know it at the time. I've talked about this before. I will talk about this again. When it comes to this particular manuscript, we have better photographs now as of 2012, which show that some of those older readings were wrong. Okay? There is no death in this particular manuscript. None. So that part is wrong. Carrier doesn't understand this because he doesn't understand the field. He doesn't know enough to know. He didn't even look at the beginning. He probably didn't even look at the beginning of the book to notice that the articles published in 2005 were all from the 90s. A lot has happened since the 90s. So, but even then, this is not the Messiah. This is an eschatological priest who would suffer, a suffering that possibly involved death that would lead to joyous benefits for others. We have to be very careful about our usage of terminology when applying it to the Second Temple period, because it's easy to think that an eschatological figure could be the Messiah. It doesn't have to be. There's a lot of figures involved in the last days. So care, nuance. Be a careful reader, Richard. Your scholarship might improve if you did that. All right, press play.
All right. I was gonna say there's a few super chats if you want to pull them up.
Let's finish this quickly.
Okay.
And then we'll do the super chats, and then we'll get to the West
quote unquote already existing traditions about the suffering of the eschatological servant priest / Messiah to explain what happened to Jesus. And so this is exactly the thesis that I build in Element 5. It is exactly what Element 5 is doing. Even like the softer language, all of this is almost exactly like Element 5.
I have to double check the article, but I'm fairly sure that Carrier added / Messiah in the brackets here to eschatological servant priest. I will double check. Like I said, we'll talk about this in another stream, but I'm fairly sure that he added that little bit.
Okay.
So this is Brooke is definitely supporting me here. You're a perfect example of this. Definitely. Now, when I finished this study, I became even more convinced of the factual argument, not just the modal argument. And I think that when we look at all the evidence and all the arguments across all the studies by all the experts arguing this, as I did for this particular article, finally, I found dug through and found more and more people arguing it, more and more arguments, more and more evidence. So I went through all of it, and this is all in the article. I think even Brooks' cautious wording becomes over humble. I think the evidence is actually more overwhelming than he thought in 2005, and yet he still thinks it was convincing enough evidence, even with what he had then. And so that's why it's important here that that's exactly what I argued. Everything that Brooke argues is what I argued. And my new study proves this is what almost every expert argues. So, remember, like I said, 45-2 at best for the opposite.
I want to just read this because it's poorly worded, but he provides this impression here. The evidence is actually more overwhelming than George Brooke thought in 2005, and he still thinks it's convincing enough. So I mean, it kind of sounds like Richard is trying to get into George's head on the basis of what he wrote. A lot of the stuff, I think it's abundantly clear that in his citation of Brooke for 11Q13, Brooke's just reporting on the state of the field. He's not actually stating a strong opinion on the matter. Carrier accepts this as Brooks' opinion in a lot of these instances. It's yeah. All right. So that's that. We can put that away now. And we'll look at some super chats. But when I get a hold of the actual article, and I give it a proper read, then we'll do a stream, and we'll talk about this some more. I had considered actually reaching out to my friends, George Brooke, Marty Abeg, but George has been retired for a little while. They're both retired now. Marty avoids media like the plague, so I've considered maybe even reaching out to them to see if they would be willing to talk about some of this stuff. But in any event, stay tuned. That's coming. Super chats, and then Wes Huff.
Yes.
After an hour.
Okay.
Oh, Tree Climb Tad for $5 said he was going to be nice to me today, but after that, I will say I'm going to see a good Canadian YouTuber live tonight. Shout out Sarah Z. Who is the good Canadian YouTuber? Is that Sarah Z? I don't know
guess
who that
so.
is. Let us know who that is, Tree Climb Tad, because you know what, I certainly prefer watching.
Oh my God! Why will my little thing not pause? Hate when my. It's fine. Pulling up the other tab. It's all good. It's all good.
God. Okay. Maybe if Carrier wanted his scholarship to be taken seriously, he should learn Hebrew. Maybe. Or as a start, because 4Q 541 is written in Aramaic. A whole bunch of the Dead Sea Scrolls were written in Aramaic. But Hebrew certainly would be a start. It's Sarah Zed.
So is the Messiah like a vampire slayer, and every generation a slayer is born, but there are dozens of potential? I mean, yeah. This is something that I highlighted. Going from Jesus did not exist to he fulfilled prophecy seems like a huge leap. Yeah, to me, this feels weird that he simultaneously, like, Jesus didn't exist, but he definitely fulfilled prophecies that people were looking for.
Sorry, I
Like,
have to break.
Did they just not have a Messiah show up and they're like, well, we got to create one? I'm having trouble bridging that gap.
Yeah. Yeah, Jilly wants to know if he should practice by watching The Passion of the Christ, which is uniquely some of the only Aramaic cinema on the market, sadly. I'll be honest. I can admit that I practiced my Aramaic watching The Passion of the Christ. Sorry, guys.
Stephen G. Clenar for 5. Can we arrange a formal debate between Carrier and Huff? Double the fun. Team Meteor. Project 8647 now. Bart Ehrman excoriated Carrier on this.
Yeah.
He had the list of scholars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Roshan for $1.99. Carrier's on his own list. Narcissistic monster.
Right? Yes. It's crazy. It's wild.
Dr. Clark, I love how Carrier thinks that Blank agrees with me rather than I agree with Blank. Especially when that scholar said it long before you thought of it.
Right? Right? My God. That's on its own kind of amazing.
Yeah. Project 8647. Carrier's the mythic Moses who wrote, and Carrier was the most humble of all in one of his journals. Yes. Metageeky for 2. Tell us how you really feel about Carrier. Yeah, you're normally really reserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I just one of the things that really bothers me about this is that this is nothing new. This stuff with Brooke has come up, and I have pointed out to him the problems with what he's trying to do by invoking this source in support of his argument. So he should know this. I've told him this. Carry on, my Mayward myth son. Also, vax up and mask up.
I got 3 shots this week. 2 in this arm, 1 in this arm. Let me see if the bruise is still there. Yeah, it's still there.
Oh yeah, it's prominent.
I'm like a banana. That's the one that the COVID booster went in. Got my flu shot and round 1 of the hepatitis B vaccine. And let me tell you, I don't know which one put me on my ass all day Tuesday. It was one of them.
Oh wow.
So, but yeah, I'm all boosted up, ready to go.
All boosted up and ready to go.
Germite for 189. A lot has happened since the 90s. That's an understatement. Yes, it is.
I know scholarship moves at a glacial pace.
Yeah.
But even since the 90s, we have come a long way. And I would say the Dead Sea Scrolls scroll scholarship moves a little bit quicker than like just normal Old Testament, New Testament scholarship. And one of the reasons for that is because the manuscripts, the knowledge of the existence of the manuscripts is only is it 80 years now at this point. It's only been the last 80 years that we've known about these manuscripts, and there's a lot of them. The full publication, the full release of the manuscripts did not happen until 1991. That's less than 50 years ago. So there's still an enormous amount of material that scholars have been painstakingly working their way through. And as a result, there's new stuff that comes out on a more regular basis, I think a little bit more quickly, as scholars are working through the fragments. For example, on that one manuscript, 4Q541, Carrier calls George like an expert who's read this manuscript super closely. You know, which is, I mean, it's true insofar as any Dead Sea Scroll scholar who, you know, puts his mind to working on a particular text looks at it very closely. You could say the same thing about me with respect to things like 11Q13, or to things like a variety of the Jeremiah manuscripts, or some of the Psalms manuscripts, or the Genesis manuscripts that I have written specific articles about, right? Insofar as that is the case. However, I pulled up a book that was published 7-8 years ago by Andy Perrin, is a friend of mine, who wrote on dream visions in the Aramaic texts and spent 4 or 5 pages talking about 4Q 541 and provided a good overview of the scholarship of 4Q 541 and the current state of the field with respect to some of the same questions that George Burke was asking back in the 90s. I guarantee you that Richard Carrier has not cracked the spine on Andy's book. So it just, you know, when you know, you know. If you don't, then maybe you should just stay the fuck out of this stuff because you don't know it or you don't understand it.
Christopher Sanford for £5 to say Carrier, quote, doesn't understand is extremely charitable, Kip. People who are just uncareful readers don't use ellipses like this.
Yes. When I do it, it is when I use ellipses in my citations of secondary literature, it is only to eliminate like what I consider to be unnecessary parenthetical information. So a slightly clarifying gloss as to, like, say, the title of a manuscript. You know, I might take that out, or this man, which by the way was published in blah, 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 blah. You know, I will take that out. These are the sorts of things that I will remove just to, you know, tighten up things and make it a little bit cleaner in my citations. What I would never do is, you know, cite a scholar's fragmentary thoughts mid-sentence and tie those to statements made by other scholars that someone is citing as if they belong to him. It's true.
But yeah, seeing the ellipses, that immediately set off the red flags. Like, we're getting a Trojan source for this, aren't we?
This is quickly becoming one of my favorite games.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, is filling in the ellipses. And in this case, you know, I knew exactly. Yeah, I know George's work. I knew the article that he was citing. I knew exactly where to go. Because I was like, boy, this sure doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
I really wonder what's missing. It's been a while since I've read it. But, you know, I have read this article.
And you know, it's like you were saying that Carrier gets a lot of his stuff from like the evangelical Christian apologetic world and has a lot of contact and overlap there. And it's not a surprise because they're, especially young Earth creationists, are notorious for citing things out of context or doing Trojan sources and like cherry picking and stuff. So once you spend enough time in that sphere, you kind of, you know, to look out for it. So yeah. The ellipses are the soldiers within the horse. Very good.
Very good.
Petite Flower, are you even a real Canadian if you don't say Zed?
No, you absolutely are not a real Canadian if you do not say Zed. Thank you, Petite Flowers.
Simone for 2 Kiwi bucks.
I am able to read Aramaic.
Korah Armit. Yeah.
Yes, you are, Simone.
Did I say that correctly? The first one, Anna?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, because that's how that would be spelled in Hebrew, but I wasn't sure if I was reading Hebrew or Aramaic. So that's really the only giveaway that you're reading Aramaic there, because all the other words and forms they're vocalized a little bit differently if you actually included the vowel points. But yeah, because I would have said likra.
Yeah.
But it's also like I'm familiar with some of this from saying an Aramaic like text. We call it Kaddish, so there's stuff in there that would look familiar, but anyway, no one cares.
Nice. Thank you, Simone. Good to see you.
Okay.
Is that it? Is that it for the super chats?
Yes.
Okay, we're only an hour and 20 minutes in before getting to the actual. I'm sorry for springing this on you guys, but listen, I just could not. I was making dinner last night while I was listening to this stream, and I could not. I was losing my mind. I had to let it out.
Yeah, I mean, also it's the bullshit asymmetry principle. So
God, yes, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
That's Brandolini's law, isn't it?
I don't remember. I just call it the bullshit asymmetry principle because that sounds cooler.
Yes. Which states something to the effect of, it's like it takes so much. It's something to the effect of the amount.
Yeah, it's like it takes disproportionately longer to debunk bullshit than it does to just say it.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah. Okay, let me get the correct
100%.
timestamp here. Oh, it's not that far. Okay. Almost there. And then I'll share it and not forget to share it because I did that last time. Not doing that again. Okie dokie. Here we are at the timestamp, or at least close enough to it.
All right. So I think just to set this up for people to what I wanted to look at here is he's going to talk about Josephus a little bit, and then he's going to talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls more specifically. So and we'll see how much we get through with the time allotted. But yeah, that's sort of the plan. That's on the agenda for today. And then after that, I'm going out for sushi.
Yummy.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to share because I'm quite excited about this. I'm drinking today Blue Barrel, new fashioned hard root beer, which I found at Aldi. When I finished my move a couple weeks ago, I was like, I have a craving for hard root beer. So I went to my liquor store to find some. All I could find was a case of hard root beer, and it cost me $52 for a case of hard root beer, and it's good, it's fine. But I'm here in the U.S. I went to Aldi, and I found these for 6 bottles for $8, and I'm just like, and it's yummy, it's delicious. I don't know if they all do it this way, but this is actually beer that they then add sugar and caramel and molasses and natural flavors too. So like sarsaparilla and stuff in here, right? It's pretty cool. I like it.
Real quick, to your mind for $1.99. Area Canadian Scholar irritated. Sorry. Oh wait, sorry.
Yeah. There it is.
Even Drizzlin for 20 Nokia dollars. Vish, what's the team shirt you're wearing? It's L3, Mexico.
I'm wearing my
your effing of the Bible.
My heart shirt today. Yes. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me get rid of that really quick. And okay, guess I'm ready when you
All right, let's go.
All right.
Copies of Genesis are some of the most numerous, but in the Jewish literature documents that frequently quote scripture, they don't quote Genesis with the designation as scripture says. And I'm going to be very specific when I talk about quotations. When I'm looking for a quotation, I'm looking for that preface of as it is written, or as scripture says, or as the Spirit inspired, or as the Spirit of God spoke.
So
I'm going to be very specific with that. So though
I just want to get people on the right. He's actually talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls here and making a point about the book of Genesis being very popular in terms of the number of copies that they have, but he's making a point about direct citations of the book of Genesis in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then also clarifying, which is good. It's good to clarify this, that he's making a distinction between places where texts are explicitly quoted and even introduced by a quotation formula, as it is written, as it says, according to the scriptures, something of that nature, and then just stuff that is more loosely alluded to, kind of dovetailed into the text more seamlessly and not so obviously cited. And that's a good thing to do. It's an important question. Why did early Jewish readers of scripture choose to directly quote some things, but then other texts just preferred to rewrite them or even just incorporate them into their own literature without any obvious tells? It's a good question.
Okay.
Oh, there might be kind of allusions to Genesis. We don't have this very specific easy for me to say, the kind of designation in the beginning of that. Now, Esther and Nehemiah's lack of existence among the Dead Sea Scrolls, do we therefore conclude that it has a non-canonical status? Well, no, because that's an argument from silence. And there's no dispute about Genesis' scriptural status. So once again, we can see that as an argument of silence. But what do we conclude from that? Well, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Let me give you a different example of this. Marco Polo.
Pause it.
I know that.
For a second.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this in a second. Yeah. But so first of all, I think I might have given you a timestamp a little bit further ahead than I wanted. But I'm sorry. And we won't bother backing up, but I'll try and summarize what Wes is trying to say here. Wes is trying to make the point that there's lots of copies of the book of Genesis in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but then he makes this claim that the book of Genesis is never directly quoted in any of the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's the claim. What he doesn't mention is that there are texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls that also rather thoroughly are rewriting Genesis. Case in point, the Genesis Apocryphon. One of your favorites, Vish, the book of Jubilee, the book of Enoch. These are all texts that are fairly explicitly rewriting chunks of text from the book of Genesis. So what he just ignores that stuff. Like what do you do with that stuff, Wes? I'm curious to know, but I want to zero in on this point that he's made. He's made this claim that the book of Genesis is never directly cited in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I would say that's wrong. And I think he's unaware of this, in part because he's not a Dead Sea Scrolls scholar. He doesn't know the material that well. He doesn't know it well enough to even know where to look to find places where the book of Genesis is cited or quoted. Oh, you gave me that link for I should try that. Oh, but you put it. Could you bring that up?
Yeah. Let me grab that. It's not like the greatest resource, but it works in a pinch.
Sure. If we're in a pinch, because I can't display my text. Let's see if this one does it for us.
Okay.
If you can bring it up, and then let's see if
so this will tell you how to read it, and it'll let you compare, what's in the Dead Sea Scrolls versus Masoretic and stuff like that. So,
but I think it's just
options.
Yeah. So this is just Bible, so we can't. It's actually not going to be useful to us. So.
It's
so
not,
let's put
it's not the greatest, but
but it's a good resource if people are interested in the text of the Dead Sea Scrolls for the Bible. That's a good place to go.
Yeah.
So I've got my computer here, so I can talk to you about a manuscript. We talked about my Dr. Fodder, George J. Brooke, a little bit. Professor Brooke did his own PhD on a manuscript called labeled 4Q252. The designation for this manuscript is the Commentary on Genesis A, and it's an interesting manuscript, and really the case that George made in his dissertation is that 4Q252 is actually a fairly old text. And what it is it's an example of kind of like a hybrid text between this period of time, because the thought is that there was an earlier period of time when scribes and writers were more keen to just take texts of scripture and rewrite them. This is something that happened earlier on, that they would just take them and, weren't satisfied with what they had to say. So they just rewrite it. They just make something new based on the earlier text and incorporating their own new ideas and doing it in such a way that you can't just tell, looking on the face of it, that that's what they're doing, unless you know the text really, really well, right? So, but at some point in time, probably prior to the beginning of the 2nd century. At some point in time, prior to the beginning of the 2nd century, Jewish readers started to actually quote texts and then provide an interpretation of it. We come to think of this as pesher exegesis. I'm not really keen on the term just because scholar, nuance, it's hard, but it's fine. Most of the time you'll hear this described as pesher exegesis. There are whole manuscripts in the Dead Sea Scrolls that are designated as peshers. So these are individual manuscripts that do nothing but just cite an individual text of scripture and then provide a separate interpretation of it. So the claim is that the book of Genesis is never cited in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that's where the commentary on Genesis A comes in. And I'll just read here at the very beginning. I wish I could show you, but I can't. At the very beginning of column 3, we have this ka'asher katuv, which means just as it is written. And then following that, it's fragmentary, but we have a a retelling of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. So, right there, even though it's fragmentary, even though we don't have it all, we have a fairly explicit example of a place where the book of Genesis is actually cited in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it's not the only place. We go to column 4, and it says this. I'll just read Marty Abeg's English translation here of column 4. Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son. She bore Amalek to him, whom Saul defeated, just as he said to Moses, I will blot in the last days, you will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. The blessing of Jacob, Reuben, you are my firstborn, and the firstfruits of my vigor, excelling in rank and excelling in power. You are unstable as water, so you shall no longer excel. You went up onto your father's bed, then you defiled it, and so on and so forth. So there's a couple of examples in this particular manuscript of places where the book of Genesis is actually directly cited, contrary to what Wes is telling you. But I think a larger issue, one that we will talk about in a little bit, is how do we then think about this question of citation or allusion or paraphrase when it comes to the biblical text in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and how do we appraise these things on, a spectrum of so-called authority? But here he's going to give an example. The other thing he was pointing out here is that the book of Esther is not in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's not found there. And he says this, the absence of a book in one ancient library does not prove rejection. Silence is not evidence. Scholars must weigh what is missing against what is expected. Should we expect the Dead Sea Scrolls community to be collecting the book of Esther? Why or why not? Do you have any ideas as to why maybe the Essenes didn't collect the book of Esther, Vish?
I mean, I'm not well read enough about the Qumran community to know why they would find that maybe something that they're not super interested in. So I dare not speculate.
Dare not speculate, right? Scholars have done this, speculated about its absence, but a lot of them tend to think that the absence of Esther from the Dead Sea Scrolls library is that, and Esther's just a wonderful book in the first place. It's just a delightful story. It's like an ancient Jewish novella. It's great. But the purpose of the novella is really to celebrate the ancient festival of Purim. And this is a festival that the Essenes did not celebrate. So scholars have, I think, reasonably suggested that what's the purpose of even collecting or including a text like Esther if you just have no interest in celebrating Purim, beyond the fact that it's a great story. So that's one idea. So the absence of a book from an ancient library does not prove rejection. I guess that's fair enough, but then you must provide an argument for what you expect. Do we even expect it to be there? Wes seems to think, sure, why not? I'm like, I don't do a lot of that. I don't do, well, I would expect this, therefore I think it's probably the case, or at least I try not to in my own scholarship. But Book of Esther not in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think probably because of the Essenes and their refusal to celebrate the festival of Purim. But it could be another idea. It doesn't seem all that likely, though, that they would have collected Esther. She's never mentioned. There's nothing from the Book of Esther that's ever mentioned in any of the other literature There's nothing approaching the content of Esther that even appears within any of the rest of the collection. So yeah, I need a lot more than just, oh, maybe could be, right? I need more than that. So yes, but so he's going to go into an example here, a more contemporary example from Marco Polo.
Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Let me give you a different example of this. Marco Polo was an incredibly influential geographer and ancient chronicler. And Marco Polo, traveling from Italy into Asia, never once mentions the Great Wall of China. Now, do we conclude then that the Great Wall of China did not exist in Marco Polo's day?
Did he travel far enough to see it?
China. She was in China.
Oh, then he must have seen everything there was in China.
Every square inch of China.
Hey, Kip, why was the Great Wall built?
I believe, over a very long period of time. But it went through a lot of, like, it was built and then it was
yes, but why?
Destroyed. And why? To keep, to keep people out of China.
Interesting.
The latest I guess the more famous version of the Great Wall that we're familiar with is not that old. I'm
going somewhere with this. So
yes.
If he lands in China by sea, that's not where China was building the wall to keep invaders out.
There you go. Very good. Yes. China's big.
So yes, China's big.
Fucking big.
And shockingly, China was not building the wall along the ocean front. So
the wall also is mostly like up in the north.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was up in the north anyway. So what are you doing? That is the worst example you could have used. Wes, like
something else that needs to be pointed out too is that the Great Wall of China is not just one thing. There were emperors from, I believe, as far back as like the 4th or maybe the 5th century BC, who were building fortifications to keep invaders out of China. And there were several iterations of these. And I know, I don't know much, but I know enough to know that the early iterations of the Great Wall of China had fallen into disrepair. And looked like little more than like mounds of dirt in some instances, in some places, right? Still, if you go to China to go see the Great Wall, some of the oldest sections, it looks like a big mound of dirt, right? Because they were building using probably like mud brick and lots of straw and things like that. And those things degrade over time. And invaders actually managed to, break through some of these earlier iterations. The one we're most familiar with, I think, wasn't even built. The stone wall that you see in all the most famous pictures of it. Someone could correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe this particular iteration of the Great Wall of China wasn't even constructed until a couple hundred years after Marco Polo had left. So it's a dumb example. There are reasons why Marco Polo didn't mention the Great Wall of China, and we know the reasons. Right? It's not an argument from silence.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Well, no, that would be silly because we know it existed. Just because we think people should mention things doesn't necessarily mean they ought to. And so in terms of an argument from silence, when we look at something like the presence or lack thereof of something like Esther, we need to make sure that we're careful with the conclusions that we draw from that. A lot of these documents are upwards of 2,000 years old. It could be that the books of Esther just didn't survive. Or
look at that.
There could be other reasons why they didn't include it. I mean, Esther is more of a controversial document within the Book of Esther, ancient Judaism, specifically because
the Book of Esther.
Was it controversial?
5th century BCE was the date there. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time in the Book of Esther, but I'm fairly sure that there are very few scholars who would date it that early. I think this is Wes's attempt to smuggle in his idea that most of the biblical texts are like eyewitness accounts to the things that they bear witness to. There was actually, apparently, in his mind, there was actually a Jewish queen in the 5th century of Persia. And the book of Esther is just like a court record of what happened under the rule of Artaxerxes. How the hell do we even know about it then if it's been lost for them?
Maybe it was just lost to the Qumran folks. I don't know.
Could be.
Weird.
Right?
Because it doesn't include, it's the only book of the Hebrew Bible that doesn't include the formal name of God. Yahweh, Wowhe, Yahweh, the divine name.
Oh, pause. I think he's got a chart. I think he's got a chart. We should look at the chart. I hope he has a chart, but we're going to talk about this.
I am too sober for this.
You could use some Blue Barrel new fashioned hard root beer. It's good.
Damn it.
Yov, hey, wow.
I'm gonna try this again. We might get another clip out of this.
Of the Hebrew Bible that doesn't include the formal name of God. Yahweh, Wowhe.
Vav, hey, Yav, hey, wow, hey.
Wow, hey.
Yes. Wes Huff.
You need to clip that.
I
That's
do,
another one.
but we also need to do this.
I can say, Ahav Tika, I love you.
Oh, hey, wow, hey, man, he just keeps on coming, dropping all these bangers, like.
Word for word.
Word for word.
Word for word.
Wow.
I know it's not. I know it's not Wes Huff.
It's not family. It's clan. Mishkapet.
Mishkapet.
Yeah, the people in chat are
Yav,
saying
hey,
they're
wow,
getting
hey.
psychic damage from that.
Wow. All right.
That's bad.
It's bad.
That's around the 2350 mark, just for future reference.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that. Maybe we should
Turn off
we
your
should write that
Discord
down.
notifications because I'm gonna type it to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Because you.
I got my
have them
headphones
the whole
on. I
time,
don't
it's
think
driving
they'll.
me
And
nuts.
I'm not on my computer, so we're good.
Okay. Here we go.
Yahweh, the divine name. It's never used once. Now, God is kind of referred to
All right.
in a secondary
Right.
way throughout
Good.
Esther. God is
Good.
assumed, but
Good. It's Yov, hey, wow, hey.
Amazing.
All right.
the divine name is never found within Esther. And so sometimes the ancient Jews would reference that and saying, it's in a bit of a different category. So we have these quoted books. Exodus, Proverbs, Numbers,
Okay.
Isaiah, Leviticus, and Jeremiah are the most quoted books within the Dead Sea Scrolls. But we can jump over from ancient Israel over to Egypt because we have a writer, Philo of Alexandria, who is a very influential ancient
Okay.
Jewish writer. He quotes from the Torah thousands of times, but he does not quote from all.
Because he made
What
a
were you saying?
claim. So if you missed it, what Wes said was that the divine name Yod He Vav He, not Yav He Wow He, is never appears in the Book of Esther, and maybe that's why it was left out of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But we know that's not the reason, because the Book of Ecclesiastes also never mentions never contains the divine name. And you know, there is one, maybe two, I certainly one, there might be two copies of the Book of Ecclesiastes in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But like, this is it, what's even worse than this is Wes doesn't even get the facts right here. It's not that the divine name is never mentioned in Esther. It's that God never makes an appearance in the book of Esther. So not only is there no mention of Yahweh, there's no appearance of Elohim or El in the entire book of Esther, which is unusual. I believe it is the only book of the Hebrew Bible that has no mention of God either by his name or his designation. So it's that's the truth of it. So I think we got another couple super chats here, I think, right? Maybe we should look at those. Victoria Macaros
cuts and jumps are super annoying. Yeah.
In this video.
Well, there's a lot that's very annoying about this, and
very annoying. And
so I don't know why my mic is doing that weird thing. So
what's it doing?
They said that it's suddenly very quiet.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
So, but there's one of the things that we see in this video is that a lot of this stuff was done on the cheap. Like it's pretty cheap budget projection. They didn't put a lot of money behind.
Which is funny considering
a number of these things
is, but whatever.
Jesus, right? Yeah, no kidding. Start up, Marco. Polo. Metageeky Platypus Librarian for $5 says, quick, get an Italian American in buckskin to pretend to chant that as an authentic ritual song. Nice.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
All of the Jewish canon. So based on his citations of scriptural books, is it reasonable to assume that he is in agreement with Josephus and has the 22 or 24 book canon that is not long after referred to as the Tanakh? Maybe. Interestingly enough, though, he never once quotes from the books that are later referred to as the Apocrypha or the Deuterocanon in terms of these books that make their way into the Roman Catholic Bible. But once again...
Oh no, it must mean, justification for the Protestant canon.
Obviously.
The right one.
Obviously. Because Philo, this one guy...
Yeah, just this guy.
I don't know. Feels like the so-called Apocrypha has an important place in the older, much more extensive library of the writers and collectors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, who have lots of copies of texts like the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Enoch, the Aramaic Levi document. There's some evidence that they knew of the additions to the Book of Daniel in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then there's a whole fuck ton of other texts that they collected and revered that we'd never even heard of or knew before their discovery. It sort of feels like at this time period, this is really not a useful category of text to be using when talking about this question of so-called scripture and authority and such things. When I, as a scholar, when speaking of the literature of Second Temple Judaism, don't spend a lot of time making clear the designations Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha and scripture, just because these categories don't mean anything in the period in which these texts were written.
We need to be measured in our conclusions drawn from that. As well as we can look at the New Testament, because the New Testament is a collection of 27 books that come from a kind of outpouring of the Jewish community. The earliest Christians were Jews who believed in Jesus as their Messiah. And so it's useful to look at even how they reference their Old Testament books, because we see the 13 most quoted books being some of the most important books within the Old Testament, but
now,
not every book.
Hold on a second. it's kind of interesting to me that instead of listing the individual books of the Torah,
I was just about to say that.
yeah,
I was just about to say that.
because in the first place, we don't have a lot of evidence that there were even Torah scrolls at Qumran. A Torah is a collection of the 5 books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That's the Torah.
Joan is heavy, even
God.
though it's just those 5. I'm just
Probably a big part of why they didn't have Torah scrolls.
Yeah,
There was a
shout out to the Hagba and Galila folks holding up them domes for the congregation.
That's right.
Stuff takes crazy
So-
muscles. So.
Yeah, it does. So there was a scholar who has mounted an argument for the existence of Torah scrolls at Qumran, and I've been in attendance at some of his presentations, and the response from his peers always tends to be in the same vein. They're like what are we talking about here? That would be like, do you ever see those great big rolls of newspaper, before that go on the machines at the printing presses of like the newspaper printers, right? Like it'd be like that. Like you're dealing with, I remember sitting in a presentation and Emil Puesh, the famous Dominican scroll specialist, came up to me. He's like, well, no, he's like, this seems just completely impractical to me, because you're talking about right now, you're talking about a manuscript that when you roll it up, it's like this, right? It literally would be this. He's like, how do you even, like, what do you even do with that? How do you transport that? How do you store that? Like, could you imagine if you're putting it in a jar, or if you're putting it on a shelf, where would you put it? It's too big. So the technology changed that by probably the end of the 1st century, the beginning of the 2nd century, you're starting to see actual Torah scrolls that are, smaller in terms of their girth, more manageable, right? Oh, I just really like that I got to say girth on my stream.
Yeah, how do you handle it for regular reading? Well, if you're reading off the physical scroll in a synagogue, you lay it on a table and, scroll to the section that you're at and read the sections or whatever. People in their daily lives aren't unfurling a Torah scroll to read from it. You're going to get a printed version, maybe a Chumash, and you're just going to read off that. So I would suspect that the people at Qumran, if they had copies of, XYZ text, they just had smaller ones, because, oh my God, that's unwieldy. It really is.
Yeah. So now, so I think he's doing this intentionally because he wants to preserve and promote this idea that the Torah was normative, like for the Dead Sea Scrolls community. This is an open question. When it comes to the actual citations in the Dead Sea Scrolls, far and away, most of them come from Genesis, Exodus, and Deuteronomy. Much less cited are Numbers and Leviticus. So should we just group them all together, especially in the event that we don't have any individual manuscripts that have all of them together? Yeah, no, I would say no. And the same thing, it's the same thing for the New Testament, right? The individual Torah texts are not cited evenly in the New Testament. That it's very similar in the New Testament. There's more citations from the book of Genesis, I believe, and the book of Deuteronomy than the others. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that to be the case. So, yeah. All right.
They were asking me, like, hey, isn't that a really big table if you're unrolling it? And like, you don't unroll the whole thing. You just unroll like the section. But if you do want to see the entire scroll unrolled at one time, pull up to a synagogue with permission at the end of Sukkot, and you'll frequently see the whole room is holding up a section, and you can go and go, oh, this is Genesis, this is flood, this is this, and you'll see them go through the whole thing and go, look how huge and long and big a story this is, and then we roll it back up and start Genesis again. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The biblical Old Testament is quoted even in the New Testament. Songs of Solomon is never quoted in the Old Testament. Interestingly,
why would you write poetry?
Also, why would you call it the Songs of Solomon? It's the Song of Songs. That's what it is. So Shir HaShirim.
Enough. The book of Joshua is never quoted in the Old Testament. Now, the book of Joshua is mentioned, like I said before, but with the strict criteria of a direct, it is written, Scripture says, inspired by the Spirit, these sorts of things. Joshua is never quoted.
Wait, what? It's inspired by the Spirit? Are there any quotations in the New Testament that are prefaced by inspired by the Spirit? Please. I mean, I've read the New Testament a couple times. I don't remember seeing that anywhere. Nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Is he hang on, I think I know what he's talking about.
And so the New Testament doesn't quote every book of the Old Testament. The New Testament doesn't quote the Apocrypha, though, the Deuterocanon, those books that are in the Roman Catholic Bible, but does allude to them. Second Maccabees 6 and 7 is alluded to, and in Hebrews 11, there's this kind of chronicling of faithful Jews who have stood up for the faith, and there's an allusion to a story in Second Maccabees where the Jews are standing up against the Greeks, and they're being persecuted for that. And Jude does quote Enoch 1:9. So if we look at the kind of quotation data, we see something very interesting in that it's ranged. Right. We have a range of data.
Pause. All right. So we have, this is the stuff I wanted to look at. Dead Sea Scrolls quotes, Dead Sea Scrolls comments, Philo quotes, and New Testament quotes. So Dead Sea Scrolls quotes, we already mentioned that he's wrong in that Genesis is definitely quoted in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Quote Daniel, toss it out of the canon.
Oh, that's true. Yes, that's a good point. Dead Sea Scrolls comments. He's got a lot wrong here, because again, he should be including the book of Genesis. He should also be including the book of Isaiah, because we have a couple of copies of Isaiah Pesharim. They're fragmentary, but they're definitely that's definitely what they are. What is missing from this chart are the numerous copies of alternative versions of many of these books. Alternative versions of Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, certainly, Joshua, certainly, First and Second Samuel and First and Second Kings. There's alternative version. There's an alternative version of that. There are competing versions of the Psalms in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's not an alternative version to the Book of Proverbs, but there's a much more popular collection of wisdom sayings in the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Book of Proverbs, known as Instruction. And oh, by the way, they also had a copy of Ben Sirah, written in Hebrew. The Book of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, alternative versions, right? Yeah. The Book of Daniel, alternative versions.
Once again, where is Chronicles?
Yeah, he just completely forgot about it, right? Like, it's just like, does it even, and it's interesting that it's missing it's missing entirely. Nobody was quoting or commenting apparently on the Book of Chronicles. Get rid of it. Nobody ever, apparently. So yeah, but yes, there are certainly copies, or at least one copy of the Book of Chronicles in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
And yeah, I have to laugh that he has Psalter mentioned, because he has to know just enough to call it Psalter and not Psalms, because he has to know there's a different numbering, and there's stuff in there that scholars today are still like, wait, does this really count as a Psalter, or is it a different version of Psalms as we know it? Like, that was one of the first papers that I read when I was starting to like look into the Dead Sea Scrolls Psalms. So
Yeah.
it's like, is this actually a Psalter? This guy's so frustrating.
He really is.
Within the books that are quoted and that aren't quoted, though we continually see whenever the Jews write and talk about how many books are specifically in their canon, we see this 22 or 23 number. And though those are never listed overtly, because of the tradition that carries on into the 1st century and onward, it is reasonable to assume that those are the books that eventually make up either what we see in the Tanakh or what we see then adopted within what eventually makes into the Protestant canon of the...
We don't see any numbers of books, anybody actually counting books, until I believe the very end of the 1st century. So no, I'm sorry. It's just not reasonable at all, Wes, to assume that these extend back to an earlier period. It's just not. The best evidence and information that we have with regards to the shape of so-called scripture in the 1st century and any time prior to that is that it's still really fluid, that the boundaries are not sharply defined. There's still ongoing question about what texts individual Jewish communities prefer to read and which ones they're not interested in. And importantly, this is not universally applied. Like, individual Jewish communities had their favorite texts that they preferred over other ones, and the lists were different.
.39. So we have a range of data: Dead Sea Scroll quotes, Dead Sea Scroll comments, Philo's quote, and then the New Testament quotes. But the next 400 years are also relevant. The next 400 years are interesting because as Christians start to develop their own canon, as they look at, as I said before, being Jews who believe in Jesus as the Messiah, as they look at this tradition where you have...
I'll be interested. I'll be honest with you. I don't have that much interest in what Christians were doing or thinking over the course of the next number of centuries. Yeah. So I did want to bring a couple things up, which I think are important to this question. I'm pretty sure I added them here. It might take me a second to find them. Do you want to do you want to talk about talk more about Project Hail Mary, Vish, for a few minutes while I find what I'm looking for?
Yeah, so I came across one of the characters that I started getting interested in. No surprise, it was Rocky, and my housemate is looking at me as if they wish to say something. Oh, hi, bye. They're going to play D&D, so...
Oh, that's exciting.
Jealous. But, yeah, I like sci-fi, and, you know, people whose taste I trust said that it was good and that they enjoyed it. So I was like, all right, sure. Let me give this a spin. I didn't quite account for how long the movie was. That's okay, because I finished in time to get ready for the stream, which is all that matters.
That's all that matters.
So I love good sci-fi, and I particularly liked having something wholesome to break up all the doom and gloom. So
isn't that the truth?
I agree with Cheetah. I didn't think that I would like Project Hail Mary, but I was surprised, and very pleasantly so. Like, halfway through the movie, I'm sitting here crying over a puppet rock alien. Like, yeah, wow, that took me on an emotional journey. So
All right.
Um,
As it turns out, just you have to give me a second because it seems that I did not actually upload these to Drive. So I'm just doing that now.
Okay.
So take a minute.
So Simone comments, Solomon Schechter noted that the author of the Damascus document obviously considered Jubilees to have the same authority as the Torah when he published the Geniza copies in 1910.
Right? In 1910. So this was even before the discovery of the early manuscripts from Qumran. If you're interested, the Damascus document is a text, right, that was known about already before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we found fragmentary copies of the same text that predated the copy we had by like 1,000 years. Pretty wild, but yeah.
And Guard says, out of context, it sounds like you're describing the never-ending story. Yeah, I guess so. Rock puppet alien.
All right. So
yes. The eating scene, disgust. That was good. That was good. Obviously they gave Rocky mannerisms that we would be able to relate to, but I think one of my favorite parts is Rocky getting the zoomies coming over to the human ship for the first time. That was pretty entertaining. Running into things. Apology. Just bouncing around. I love it. I did see some discussion of like, hey, is this just Rocky's natural personality? Is he just a hyper nerd? You know, because he's like a smart mechanical engineer and all that. Is that just him being a nerd and excited about stuff? Or is, he's still experiencing some trauma from being the only survivor, and that's feeding into how he interacts. I say he, but, it's an alien. So. Yeah, feeling lots of feels, enjoying the story, enjoying the wholesome friendship quite a bit. So I was very invested in Rocky's well-being too. I was very upset in a few parts of the movie, and you'll know which ones they are, but all is well. So
that's good. All right, I think I'm ready.
Ads have come from the Ben Ezra Geniza, though, because it turns out a bunch of stuff got lumped into the, quote, Geniza documents that came from a bunch of different places. Provenance is difficult.
Thank you for that. Nuance is very important. All right, so I wanted to share some stuff from this book. So this is a book that I wrote a while ago, back in 2014, that discusses some of the stuff that is really pertinent to what Wes is talking about. Specifically, how do we even understand what early Jewish readers considered to be so-called authoritative, and why did they consider them to be authoritative? Were these always texts? And were they always textualized versions of things? So did you have something else?
Yes, before you get serious.
What?
Project.
Very nice.
Yes. Thank you.
So good. No, Trixie. I wrote this book before he was alive. He couldn't have written it. He was not even born when I wrote this book. It's just not possible.
He knows how to time travel. He went back in time. It's a paradox. Don't worry about it.
Blue Barrel. I think it's from Vermont.
Oh.
Yes, it is. It's from Vermont. So it's really good. I like it.
Also
okay.
known for their cheese.
Nice.
Sharp
and
cheddar,
syrup, but it's here in Canada. We don't talk about Vermont syrup.
I had actual Canadian maple syrup recently, and I'm never going back.
We hoard
Whatever-
that shit.
Yeah, whatever corn syrup, freaking sugar goo is made here in America, it's not.
It's not the same.
No, Canadian maple syrup, that's gold.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
It really truly is. So
Mm-hmm.
okay. So in the first chapter of my book on Jeremiah traditions in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Apocryphon of Jeremiah, I go into a discussion of this question. What even is a biblical text? How do we understand the authority structures that ancient people were using when they applied them to the text that they were reading? So, and I'm using this with respect to the text that I'm working on, the Apocryphon of Jeremiah C. So here in this paragraph, I begin. The application of the term parabiblical, which is a term that scholars invented to group texts together that were a lot like the Bible, but not the Bible. They're parabiblical. So the application of this term to a text like the Apocryphon C is problematic in that, while it does distinguish it from the more commonly recognized rewritten Bible text that functioned as interpretations of other texts, it still presumes a biblical or textualized grounding for its authority. Most recently, Molly M. Zahn has argued that plotting texts along a spectrum as a gauge for determining their conformity to, in one direction or another, to previously known editions is artificial and not especially helpful for increasing our understanding of the function of these texts in antiquity. For Zahn, the problem has stemmed from a confusion between the quantitative and qualitative differences between texts when determining their relationship and status to one another. She says, if we classify the reworked Pentateuch manuscripts as copies of the Pentateuch, it should not be primarily because of their closeness to the Pentateuchal text relative to other works, but because there is no literary or functional indication that they are anything other than Pentateuchal. Conversely, if we classify the Temple Scroll or Jubilees as non-biblical, though quite probably scriptural compositions, it should not be primarily because of the amount of difference between them and the text of the Pentateuch, but because each has been given a new literary setting and a new literary voice. Zahn's observations are helpful to remind us of the persistent problems in dealing with ancient texts and attempting to extrapolate from our own modern experiences their purposes, function, and value in antiquity. However, her study is much more concerned with compositional techniques and textualized exegetical methods, and is not especially applicable to the dynamic interaction between persona and product that appears in a work like the Apocryphon C. Hindi Naiman has argued against applying anachronistically derived. Hindi Naiman is at the University of Oxford. She is currently the holder of John Barton's chair at the University of Oxford. She's argued against applying anachronistically derived concepts of textualized authority to much earlier texts, and has proposed an alternative model, which may prove to be more effective for reading the Apocryphon of Jeremiah C and for determining the presence, purpose, and function of the other Jeremiah traditions in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Naaman rightly cautions that in addition to the development of the texts themselves, concepts of authority that inform them also have a complex history. So the idea of authority, what made a text authority, is something that was not always fixed. It's an idea that also has a developmental history. Contrary to the more modern abstractions, Naaman offers an alternative concept of authority in Second Temple Judaism, asserting that some discourses were inextricably linked to their founders. Her study explores how later reworkings and representations of the Mosaic Law were authoritatively imbued by their participation in Mosaic discourse, which is defined according to the following 4 common traits. First, by reworking and expanding older traditions through interpretation, a new text claims for itself the authority that already attaches to those traditions. Second, the new text ascribes to itself the status of Torah. It may portray itself as having either a heavenly or earthly origin, but in any event, as an authentic expression of the Torah of Moses. Third, the new text is said to be a representation of the revelation at Sinai. There is repeated emphasis on gaining access to revelation through a recreation of the Sinai experience. This strategy emphasizes the presentness of the Sinai event, even in the face of destruction and exile. And finally, the new text is said to be associated with or produced by the founding figure, Moses. This claim serves to authorize the new interpretations as divine revelation or dictation and as prophecy or inspired interpretation. The new text can be seen as an extension of earlier ancestral discourse. The important thing to note from Naaman's model is particularly the 4th point, that the authority conferring device at work in later representations of Mosaic discourse is not their authoritative base text, but rather the perception of Moses, the ultimate prophet. Naaman is also careful to point out that there were other operative discourses in Second Temple Judaism. Whoops, sorry, I bumped the mic. Other operative discourses in Second Temple Judaism beyond the Mosaic discourse. And these all have in common a form of authentic claim tied to a founder. Naaman's study is an exploration of the scribal practice of pseudepigraphy, but her work has far-reaching implications for those compositions that are even more implicitly linked to figures of renown from antiquity. I'm just going to jump ahead here to this final paragraph here. As Naaman draws from Moses' reputation for prophetic excellence in the representation of Mosaic traditions, it is analogously possible that Jeremiah's prophetic reputation should serve as the starting point for reading a text like the Apocryphon of Jeremiah. See, and for assessing the contribution of Jeremianic traditions more generally in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Apocryphon was obviously an important text for some within the Yachad Essene movement, as evinced by the several copies at Qumran, but most likely not for its commitment to some pre-existing authoritative text. Rather, it presents itself as a combination of inspired history and new prophecy. It is new revelation for its handlers that is not necessarily derived from older written scriptures, although it may contain various echoes and allusions to other scriptures. The Apocryphon, then, is best considered in light of what we know about prophecy, prophets, and perceptions about them in Second Temple Judaism. So the point that I'm striving to make here is that even talking about the shape of the Bible or scriptures in early Judaism is not as simple as just counting copies of so-called biblical books, places in which texts were cited. You also have to factor into consideration this enormous amount of literature, which was clearly riffing off of scriptural texts, but then inventing new ideas connected to them, new revelation associated with them, and for the purpose of promoting more contemporary versions of theology. So I've got another one here to share, and then that's probably it for today. So this is, I'll just show you here. This is the excellent book by Eva Mroczek, published by Oxford, The Literary Imagination in Jewish Antiquity. And I gotta go to page 45.
Maybe this is a book that Richard Carrier should read, since he
yes,
so keen on speculating what Jews at the time were capable of imagining.
Pada-ching. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So, bibliographic surprises in early
Forget to
Judaism.
make it
I want to
big
read
and-
this.
There
I
you
want
go.
to read this section here. Read this section on bibliographic surprises in early Judaism. And in this first chapter, these first couple chapters of Ava's book, she's exploring the book of the Psalms in early Judaism, based on the copies that we have, the manuscript copies that we have, but also in terms of how they're presented, in terms of how other texts from the late Second Temple period talked about the Psalms themselves. And this is where she ends up. The Psalms represent only the clearest example of what becomes visible when we read about biblical and bookish lenses. Read without biblical and bookish lenses, sorry. In this chapter, this case study has illustrated both how the results of the last two generations of scholarship have destabilized and decentralized our concept of the biblical text, and how the icon of the Bible as book continues to structure our thinking. What is true of the Psalms is true for much of early Jewish sacred literature in general, which was not stable or unified in a single location. Traditions related to Jeremiah are a key example. What we now know as the book of Jeremiah existed in a similar form in the Second Temple period, but it was only one part of a cluster of material related to the prophet Jeremiah that was not contained in or conceived in terms of a single or stable book. We can see this at play on two different levels. First and most simply, we have the text critical issue. There was no single book of Jeremiah, but two major forms of the text. Scholars have long been aware that the version of Jeremiah in the Septuagint is quite different from the Masoretic one. The Septuagint preserves an earlier and shorter version, while the Masoretic text is longer, with episodes in a different order. Both of these text types were present, side by side, at Qumran, where 6 fragmentary Jeremiah manuscripts have been found. But the secondary level of the issue is more complicated and more significant. It is not merely that the book of Jeremiah existed in at least two forms. Rather, we can see that the tropes and traditions that circulated in connection with Jeremiah did not necessarily converge around a specific bibliographic unit we would call the book of Jeremiah at all, in either of its two major textual forms. Instead, they were broader cultural tropes found in multiple locations, which were connected through cultural knowledge about a common persona and shared themes, rather than common dependence on a scriptural text in one or another version. In his study of Jeremianic traditions at Qumran, especially the Apocryphon of Jeremiah C., Kip Davis illustrates how our understanding of Jeremiah's place in the ancient imagination must be unmoored from the biblical book and instead placed in culture more broadly. Davis shows that the book of Jeremiah is only a minor player in the Qumran literature, extant in only 6 fragmentary copies, rarely quoted, and without the Pesher kind of style commentary written for Isaiah or Habakkuk. Scriptural Jeremiah appears not to have been significant in the reading and interpretation of authoritative or sacred literature. But while the book was not central, the reputation of Jeremiah as a prophet, exilic leader, and figure associated with the idea of the new covenant was more significant, even foundational to the self-understanding of the Qumran community, and inspired other literary products. The Apocryphon of Jeremiah, for example, is not a rewriting of a scriptural Jeremiah in either of its major forms, although scholars have tended to ask how it is related to authoritative scripture. But as Davis shows, the authoritative employment and function of Jeremianic traditions does not appear grounded in the text of scriptural Jeremiah, but it rather may be located within the character or persona of the prophet behind the text. Thus, the book of Jeremiah is not necessarily the fountainhead or anchor for Second Temple Jeremiah traditions. Instead, the character participates in a reputational model for authority that is not primarily textualized. Given this unmooring of the character from the scriptural book, even calling Jeremiah a biblical character already misrepresents his place in the Second Temple Jewish imagination. Davis shows the significance of Jeremiah as a cultural figure at Qumran, but the idea of a reputation for Jeremiah and his prophecy that is not specifically scriptural can also be traced outside the scrolls. The 2nd century book of Daniel is a surprising example. In chapter 9, we read of Daniel consulting written records. I, Daniel, perceived in the books, Beinti b'Sepharim, the number of years that, according to the word of the Lord to the prophet Jeremiah, must be fulfilled for the devastation of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. Daniel fasts and utters a penitential prayer. He then receives a visit from the angel Gabriel, who reveals that the prophecy has a cryptic meaning, not 70 years, but 490. This passage is most commonly read as an unprecedented explicit example of inter-biblical interpretation, in which an earlier text is rescued from meaninglessness and obscurity and made relevant through a new interpretation. But Matthias Hens points out for the character Daniel, there is nothing odd about Jeremiah's prophecy, so he does not ask for an interpretation. Hens adds, the biblical author's reworking of earlier material is altogether different from Daniel's acting as an inspired exegete, which it turns out he does not, and the two should not be confused. But exactly what earlier materials is the biblical author invoking? Surprisingly, Daniel's reference to Jeremiah's prophecy is not in fact a reference to the book of Jeremiah. As Sessender's notes, first, the written source Daniel refers to is not a single book, but a collection or archive, Sepharim, in the plural. And second, the understanding of the 70-year prophecy in Daniel 9 cannot have been received directly from Jeremiah 25. Instead, the text shows unmistakable signs of being derived not from the text of Jeremiah itself, but from a widespread later Second Temple discourse about his prophecy, an observation that Sanders traces as far back as Theodore Noldeke in 1868. Indeed, the tradition about the 70 years of desolation appears in 5 other places in Scripture. And, as Michael Fishbane showed, the wording of the prayer in Daniel 9 is closest to Chronicles, not to Jeremiah 25. While Daniel 9 is often cited as the clearest example of inner biblical interpretation, it is not interpreting the biblical unit we would most readily assume. Instead, it attests to a popular tradition about destruction that is found in multiple locations. Both Davis and Sanders show that in the scriptural book as we have it, in either of its 2 major forms, it was not necessarily the central player in the ancient literary imagination, even if it is in ours. In Davis's model, which applies beyond the literature of Qumran, reputational, not scriptural sources of authority, we stand behind the creation of new Jeremiah traditions. We've seen then how both manuscript evidence and literary reference sometimes belie our bibliographic and biblical assumptions. This is not necessarily true to the same extent or in the same way for every text. There are, to be sure, other materials that do exhibit more stability and continuity with the normative Bible. Few will dispute, for example, that Deuteronomy, highly attested at Qumran, relatively textually consistent and widely quoted, existed as a scriptural book in the sense of a largely stable text contained within specific boundaries in the Second Temple period. But what about the question of Torah as a whole? Further research is needed on what early Jewish writers meant when they said Torah, because it cannot be unequivocally identified with our Pentateuch. Although Pentateuch, Torah, and Book of Moses are often understood as synonymous, this was not the case in early Jewish texts. This has been noted particularly for Ezra and Nehemiah. In Ezra, the regulations for priestly courses from a Book of Moses do not have a clear referent in the Pentateuch. In 2 Chronicles 35, 4-5, such regulations are attributed to a document of David and Solomon. Other rulings in Nehemiah are said to be in accordance with what is written in the Torah of Moses, but are either quite different than what is found in the Pentateuch, for example, intermarriage with people of the land, or do not appear anywhere in the Pentateuch at all. This disconnect indicates either that Ezra and Nehemiah's Torah of Moses was different from the canonical text that had survived, or that it was a broader concept of legal instruction, not identified with or limited to the contents and the boundaries of specific writings. Daniel 9:11 and Daniel 9:13 refer to the Torah of Moses, but give no specific citation, mentioning only that it contains a fulfilled curse on Israel. Torah may be a generic term that does not necessarily connote a specific bibliographic entity that includes the continuous narrative from creation to Moses' death, but could point to different interests than a reference to our Pentateuch. So I'm going to leave it there, but I hope people are catching what I'm getting at here with these important points that Ava is drawing out. There is a tyranny within biblical studies on a fixation of the text as the source of authority, as the object of study. And listen, guys, I fucking love the Bible, but
watch your profanity. Watch your profanity.
That's for you and someone else in the chat.
when
when people get super upset, like, oh, you're cursing. Watch your mouth. No, fuck off.
It's my show.
Shut up, bitch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Literally, we're adults. Go somewhere else.
We're adults.
Just...
So, but it's not always the text, and we need to be very, very careful because of our ideas about what the text is, how important it was, and for the reasons it was. When we're talking about the ancient readers of what we've identified as scripture, we need to be careful when we try to get inside their heads in order to understand and tease out the ideas they had with regards to this collection of literature. What Wes is doing in his course is providing a very flat, very antiquated perspective on this question of the Bible as a collection of literature. He's dealing with scholarship that's decades old. He's promoting ideas and arguments that have long since abandoned, and he's failing to engage with where the scholarship is now and where it's going. We're not talking about canon in the first century anymore. We're just not. We're not even talking about Torah as the collection of literature that the rabbis knew in the first century. It's all way more exciting than that. It's like the wild, wild west of Jewish literature
wild
and
west.
traditions. Yeah. So, all right. I have prattled on for a while. And I appreciate that there are still over 100 people watching and listening to me prattle on. So thank you for that. And I hope that if you're still here, it's because you're learning stuff. So
I'm definitely going to have to rewind this stream later and listen to it so that I can kind of internalize a lot of what you were saying, because my attention was very split during this stream. I'm sure
you're watching the chat, weren't you?
Yeah.
So we have we do have mods.
Yeah, I know. We were just there are some productive discussions and meeting going on, and then there's also some frustrating things. But I mean, that's
well, that's awesome. That is awesome to hear. So, but I think we'll end it here and now. Thank you, everyone, for coming and participating. Make sure, I never say this, but make sure you like the stream and subscribe if you haven't. I have a Patreon if you like what I do. and you're interested in seeing me continue to do it, you can join my Patreon, which is also linked in the description. If you're looking for other ways to support my work, you can buy my book, my latest book, which I moved the copy into the other room. But we'll show a picture of it at the end, I promise. So you can do that. You can buy courses that I've written and that I teach on a regular basis. And you guys can support Vish Auntie too. She has a Vish list that's linked in the description.
I do have a Vish list. I do have a Patreon as well. I don't use it probably the way that it's supposed to be used. But
I still use mine the way it's supposed to.
I don't understand why life keeps happening to me, and I keep thinking, man, as soon as this next thing settles down, I'll finally be able to dig in and, do this thing that I'm trying to finish. And I just keep saying it because stuff keeps happening.
Yeah. Stuff keeps happening.
Everything happens so much.
It's true. It's true. So please, guys, support Vish. Check out our Vish list. I'll throw also a link to Vish's Patreon in the video description.
Thank you. I knew Tree Clam Tad was going to get that reference. If anybody got it.
Sorry, that one.
Thank you. Yep. Everything happens so much.
Yeah.
Classic.
There is one more important message that I would like to leave everyone with as we sign out here. Noise Endering wonders what the Hebrew word for toaster is. And there isn't one because, they were sensible. And on that point, I will remind everybody to throw your toasters away and to air fry your bagels. Because
heresy is this?
Look, there's nothing a toaster can do that an air fryer or a toaster oven can't do. Your toaster is just taking up valuable counter space. It's just you should not. It just, you know what? I bought, because I'm in a new place now and it has a smaller kitchen and I'm feeling the pinch. I'm feeling the counter space pinch. I had to buy a countertop microwave. I was super smart because I bought a countertop microwave / air fryer. So I've got that on my counter. I've got a coffee maker. I can't have 2 coffee makers on my counter anymore. It's only just one. And
more than one.
Oh, I mean, there's coffee's complex, Vish.
Look, I was a barista for 6.5 years. I know how complex coffee can be. But having just a drip coffee maker and then like a French press, you're good.
That's still too.
That's 90%
you don't have
of
to
like
that's
what
fair.
you'll need to do.
That's fair.
So,
that's okay.
but
I
do support getting rid of toasters in lieu of an air fryer if you need to make certain foods. Air fryers won't replace everything, but they're really good at replacing toaster ovens and toasters.
Thank you. Yes, I bought a combination microwave air fryer, and I'm very excited about it. Tommy has Tommy conducted the experiment live on stream over the weekend, and assures me that that you can toast bagels in an air fryer.
You just wait until I get smicha, and then I'm convening a council to issue a harem for you specifically.
God damn it!
I'm just kidding.
All right,
I've toasted bread and bagels in the air fryer before. So
yeah, nice.
It wasn't great because like the slices of bread, you could really only do one at a time in the air fryer that I had. If I squished them, I could put 2, but it just wasn't very efficient.
Yeah.
Sorry, I leaned away from the mic. KCINHI. Is that KC in Hawaii? Maybe?
I don't see it. So, your audio.
They were saying that my audio was low. I forgot I leaned away from the microphone. Bring back with me when I lean back.
All right. So that's it for today. You're going to be on Dapper Show tomorrow?
I do plan on it. Yes.
at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. I will not be. I'm traveling. Yeah, I'm traveling tomorrow. So, and then on Sunday, I'm very excited because I'm traveling to see Bree McCune from Bree Hive in a drag show tomorrow night with some friends.
I love drag shows. They're so
I've
fun.
never
Bring
been.
Cash,
It'll be
by the way.
my very first. Yes. Oh, good call.
Mhm.
I better stop at a bank.
Bring sauce.
Yeah. So, this will be my first drag show. I'm pretty excited about
You're
it.
gonna have so much fun.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be stopping in at the residence of at the actual Castle of Dinosaur.
Casa Dino. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So, we'll be having our first ever face-to-face meetup, Dapper Dinosaur and me. So I'm
Have to
stoked.
take the photo.
Yes,
we need proof.
we'll take the photo to prove to everybody that we have met for realsies in real life. So
Right.
yeah. So that's my weekend, guys, and I'm really excited about it. But even before all that, I get to go eat sushi, so which is also exciting. So yeah. So that's it. We will be back. Oh yes. I like this idea. I really do.
Stealing one of his Warhammer minis. Never told
Yeah.
which. You know, it's funny. Well, we were watching Project Hail Mary, and Rocky makes the little guy at the first part of the movie. You know,
Did you?
I was like,
Dapper.
damn, Rocky would be awesome to play Warhammer with because Rocky could just make all their own figurines.
That's all. Yes. Right. Yes. It's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So we will be back next week on Friday with something else. I will be back on Thursday to read more from Zechariah chapter 7 and probably into chapter 8. And Jordan Jones from Bible and Archaeology, Dr. Jordan Jones from Bible and Archaeology will be joining me. I'm very excited about that. And then I believe we will also be doing another episode of Budget Scripture Saturday next weekend. So yeah, come back, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. Dr. Jordan, Oregon Trail Jones.
Yo, hey, wow, hey.
Yo, hey, wow, hey. Needs
That's
to be
another one.
thing.
We're adding it in there.
Did you write it down? I hope you wrote it down.
I did. I sent you a message and I heard the Discord notification.
Excellent.
So.
Perfect. All right. We'll see what we can do about that. So until next time, everybody.
Be excellent
Be
to
good.
each other.
Stay safe.
Hail
And as always, Hail Ratma and Hatikva.